So coming to Serenity Ranch was my third go at rehab, and it's definitely been, as far as the rehabs that I've been to, it's been the best experience out of the 3 rehabs that I've been to. I've been trying to get sober since I was 19 years old. That's when I went to rehab the first time. I'm almost 30 years old right now, and I have about 7 months clean time. So obviously I wasn't doing things the right way. I started going to AA meetings after my first time in rehab at 19. From 19 on, I started going to meetings, and I was able to put a few months together here and there, and ultimately I would end up going out on various drugs and alcohol, of course. So I think that what I did wrong was I always tried to do things my way. I never worked any, I've tried so many different approaches. I've tried one-on-one therapy, one-on-one counseling with psychiatrists, psychologists. I've tried different forms of physical therapy, going to the gym, mountain bike riding. My parents took me on vacations. I mean, I had everything growing up as a kid. I didn't have a very hard childhood. I had no traumatic experiences, yet I still became an addict, and I still became an alcoholic. So I think that my path to Serenity Ranch was basically I was living on self-will, and I tried to do things my own way. I never wanted to listen to anyone, and I thought that I could beat this disease on my own. And also, before coming to Serenity Ranch, I had no concept that drinking and drugging wasn't my problem. I always thought that if I stopped drinking and if I stopped using drugs, then things would sort of fall into place for me. And periodically, for a short amount of time, they would fall into place for me. But I could never figure out why I couldn't stay comfortably sober for longer than a month, longer than 2 months, longer than 3 months. 3 months was probably the most amount of sober time I could accumulate in the last 10 years of me trying to get sober. So obviously the relapses got worse, the quantities of drugs got worse, the drugs that I started doing were a lot harder, and the consequences became more severe, yet I still couldn't stop. In 2013, I ended up, from 2012 until 2013, I used very heavily. I was a daily user. I was using crack, cocaine, heroin, crystal meth, basically anything I could get my hands on, and I bottomed out in a way where basically my parents locked me up in my basement, and they wouldn't let me out until I went through my withdrawals. And basically I found this treatment center before, and I went there. It was a terrible experience. I got out, and of course I started using, and I had about 5 months clean time, and then I started using, and it took me about 3 weeks to reach yet a worse bottom. So this is me doing drugs for years and years, trying to kind of manage. I went to college, I had some good jobs, I started making money in my late 20s, and that's really when my disease progressed. So when I came to Serenity Ranch, I knew I was completely beaten. I knew that whatever I was doing in life was just simply not working out for me. And the things that I learned at Serenity Ranch were that I have a disease, and that it's a mental problem. That really, despite the fact that I know of how serious the consequences are to using drugs and drinking, I still can't stop. I still wouldn't care, no matter what. My wife left me. I have no more friends. I nearly ended up on the street. Ended up overdosing a bunch of times, yet that still wouldn't stop me. So I finally figured out that it's not the drinking and the drugs that's the problem, it's my thinking. It's doing things my way. It's doing things how I wanted, when I wanted, with no regard for anybody else. I learned that I have a disease of selfishness and self-centeredness, which basically makes me live a life that is very unfulfilling and very meaningless. So at Serenity Ranch, I learned that once I started going through the steps and started working with the counselors, I began to realize that if I start helping other addicts and other alcoholics in the treatment program, then I start to feel better about myself, and my self-worth starts to increase. On top of that, just the amazing staff and the program that they have here, just, people were very warm and loving from day one. The second I walked in through the doors, I knew I was in the right place. I was greeted with open arms, and people could really tell that I was beaten up, and I was given the help that I needed at that time. And after completing the 4-week program and then the 4-week CBT program, I decided to stay at the ranch and act as a volunteer of sorts, helping other people go through the program and taking other people through the steps. Because on top of individualized one-on-one counseling, we are taught to help each other in the group. So once we leave the treatment center, we can take the tools that we've learned here and use them to help other people. And as soon as I started doing that, I started to feel really good about life. My relationship with my loved ones improved considerably. People started trusting me. I started to feel all these things that I lost touch with completely. And on top of that, I learned how to pray and how to take direction. How to take direction from people with more sober time, take direction from counselors, deal with my inner demons. I dealt with so many different issues here that right now I feel as though that I can go out there in the real world, continue helping other people, and still feel good about myself. I mean, this is probably the best I've felt in the last 10 years that I've been trying to get sober. So I feel like Serenity Ranch has given me a huge leg up in the world, and I really look forward to staying in touch with the people that I met here, because I've met some of the closest, dearest friends. All my friends that I've had in the last couple of years have all fallen off, and this is basically like my family, and I would like to continue to stay in touch with these people, and basically it's been a wonderful experience.